Welcome to PIX on Pigskin from the PIX 11 Sports Department high above 42nd Street here in the heart of Manhattan. I'm your host, Todd Ehrlich, executive producer of the PIX 11 Sports Department. On today's show, take a look at the Giants as they look for their first win against the Atlanta Falcons. The Jets, trying to copy their big brother, the Giants, looking for their first win against the Denver Broncos. Both teams are unsure if they have their franchise quarterback. Gary is sure. He'll share with you. And we're here to answer those questions about things like where to get the best matzo pizza. Joe, that is your corner of the store here, and all kinds of other recommendations on this edition of PIX on Pigskin. I'd like to welcome in Andy Adler.
Well, thank you, Todd. And I'm kind of curious, Joe, where do you get the best matzo pizza?
It no longer exists.
We're going back to week one, right?
Stay tuned to the end of the broadcast here.
Week one, he teased us and told us he knew where the best was. At the end of this podcast, if you have 30 minutes, Joe will give you the world.
Okay.
Joe Messiah, I'd like to welcome you in.
Oh, great to be here.
Oh, great to have you.
That sounded like a little sarcastic to me.
Just sort of a lot sarcastic.
Like a lot.
Right. I mean, he looks happy.
We're not going to have a half-hour show.
We're going to have a half-hour show. We're doing the rundown.
Yeah.
And we get right into the show. And the king of all media, star of radio, star of print.
Where is Howard Stern?
The star of the New York Blitz, the one and only Gary Myers.
I wouldn't say I'm the star with these luminaries sitting at the table here with me.
Well, I just did.
I'm a
I
backlight.
appreciate the fact that
Just a backlight.
You are. Well, you light up every room you're in. It's not going to be a half hour if you keep digressing. So let's get right into the Jets-Broncos game. Gary, if you could, give us a little historical preferences. Jet fans have collectively lost their mind after the 4-interception performance by Zach Wilson in his home debut. Talk to me about other careers, other quarterbacks that turned it around and maybe won some Super Bowls, maybe put on a gold jacket, and had an equally horrific start.
Well, I can tell you that I was at John Elway's first start. I might have mentioned this a couple weeks ago in 1983 in Pittsburgh. And he was so bad he was benched at the half. And Steve DeBerg came in and beat Pittsburgh. And then the next week he was benched at the half against the Baltimore Colts. Andy's too young to remember when the Colts actually played in Baltimore.
Mayflower Movers moved them out.
Right.
University of Maryland College Park Terps were the guys they hired
Joe,
to help pack the boxes.
they're showing, I think the word historic.
Sigma Chi, actually.
It is true.
Yes, I was a member of the Sigma Chi.
You
fraternity.
were? That's why we don't get along.
Yeah, I
CBT. Rivals.
Todd was in the moving crew.
Yes,
Moving
I
the
was.
Colts to
Actually,
Indianapolis.
it's
He
sad
came
but
over from
true.
College Park to help out.
Got to make a buck.
Listen, as a preview to our show on Sunday, I did mention that in Eli's fourth start, he had a 0.0 quarterback rating against the Ravens. And then,
Joe's average in college is a member of Sigma Chi.
You can let
No comment.
We
The truth hurts.
We can look at our transcripts afterwards.
I graduated with a 3.0.
I think that was a
Somehow. I know, right?
A non-denial denial?
That was a non-denial denial by Joe.
Listen,
Certainly was.
I'll break it out.
Joe is good.
I graduated magna cum laude, all right? Not summa, magna. Because I had a little fun in college.
What school was this?
Yeah, I didn't go to college. I went to Syracuse.
Oh, geez.
Okay, so 9 weeks before Eli wins his first Super Bowl, the game against the Vikings was a Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. He threw 4 interceptions, and 3 of them were taken back for touchdowns. And, boy, I just killed Eli in the paper the next day. I said, 4th year, this shouldn't be happening anymore. And then, of course, he goes on and wins the Super Bowl 9 weeks later. So any Jet fan right now who's saying, I can understand them saying, oh, we're going through this again. We just went through this with Sam, and we had gone through it with Gino, and we went through this with Mark Sanchez. Now we got, when do the Jets get to settle down and have their quarterback? Well, you can't write this kid off after 2 weeks. As poorly as he played against New England, Andy, that you hope that's maybe the low point, and it only gets better from here.
I love that we're talking about fraternities and quarterbacks because that's a perfect tease to the New York Blitz, 11 a.m. Sunday mornings on PIX 11 News. Find out why Gary Myers compared it to Animal House, that start by Eli Manning. Check it out.
Speaking of quarterbacks,
That's called a tease.
at 11 a.m. Sunday morning, the greatest quarterback in the history of New York, Joe Namath, will be on the show breaking down Zach Wilson for you. Tune in. Andy, what does Zach need to do better?
Well, after 4 interceptions, there is a lot he can do better. And I think a lot of it just has to do with being comfortable out there. I mean, I'm giving him a little grace period. Gary used the word patience, and I feel like this is New York. There's not a lot of patience here. That being said, it's true. I think right now we do need to have patience with a rookie quarterback, and there's a lot of room for improvement. A lot, Todd.
Joe, I'm looking for a spark any place on that Jets offense that can help bail them out.
Michael Carter has been great. I mean, he looks like he can tote the rock, and Coach Saleh said this week that guys just fall off him, which is high praise. I loved hearing from him during his press conference this week. He said that when he was growing up, his dad made him watch the greatest running backs in NFL history, and not one of them went down on the first tackle. He said they used to make fun of you when he was a kid if the first guy who hit you brought you down. He's carrying that with him in the NFL so far. I mean, 5 yards per carry is no joke. And I think with that three-headed monster that they have, along with Coleman and Ty Johnson, it should be interesting to see how Saleh leans on that more, because that's what they did out in San Francisco. If they can get that running game going, then I think that'll do a lot to help Zach Wilson get more time, go off play action, do a couple of those rollouts, which he's very good at.
So, Gary, a guy that was supposed to be a spark, Denzel Mims, can't get on the field. What's the story? Give us the inside word.
Well, he missed a good chunk of the offseason. He had food poisoning. And I know that there was an ESPN story that he said he got the food poisoning from the Jets cafeteria.
Is that how he got mono? Is that how Sam got mono?
From the Jets cafeteria?
Because
No.
listen, these are random things that are happening with the
I know,
Jets, and
right?
they can't afford to lose players on things like
No,
this.
and neither one of them are, it's no joke. Food poisoning, mono, I mean, that's debilitating stuff. So he missed a chunk of the offseason. You can't hold that against him, especially if you got the food poisoning in their facility, which I haven't really heard the Jets retort to that. But in any case, during the summer, it became clear this is a precision passing game type of scheme that Michael LaFleur has brought in. And Mims is not necessarily a good scheme fit. And that's what you're hearing out of the Jets. I always think that's a bunch of bull. If a guy's got speed and he's got good hands and he can make plays, you find a way to get him on the field. And you got to adjust the scheme a little bit to make it fit your talent. It can't all be, just a scheme fit for the players. It's got to be, the scheme's got to be adjusted for the players. So 2020 was one of the, at least going into it, was one of the all-time best receiver drafts. And for the Jets to come out of this with a receiver who can't get on the field it's irresponsible, it's inexcusable. Joe Douglas traded down from the middle of the second round to the end of the second round. Just to throw a name out there, he passed on Chase Claypool, had a great rookie year for the Steelers. He could have traded up in the second round to get other players who were no longer on the board for him, but to trade backwards and then pick a guy who can't get on the field. His 2020 draft, other than Becton, who's now hurt, has been, and then Bryce Hall, who's starting. But other than that, it's been a washout. And, Mims is like the shining example of Jets drafts over the last, say, 7 or 8 years, where they're just wasting picks at high players who never reach their second contract.
So let's put a bow on Zach. What should the expectations be for the rest of the year? And do you guys feel like he will be the answer? I mean, it's ridiculous to judge him on 2 games. Go with Joe first, please.
I'm high on Zach Wilson. First of all,
Really? Why?
because a guy takes a beating like that in the first 2 games, and his teammates are talking about how he is just leading them in the huddle. He's not pointing fingers at anybody but himself. He wants to go out there and make the plays. He's looked athletic, even though he's getting, some of those sacks are on him. He's held the ball a little too long trying to make a play down the field. And I think we heard Robert Saleh talk about that and saying he needs to play a little bit more boring and take what's in front of him, because that will get the defense up, and then maybe you could throw it over the top to guys like Mims. But I think his ceiling is really sky high, and the Jets need to do a little bit more to protect him. I think that offensive line is still gelling, coming together. You've got a rookie in Elijah Vera Tucker. You've got Becton going down, so making those adjustments on the fly are tough. And I think that his star will be pointing north throughout the season.
Andy?
I hope you're right. I feel like I'm only basing things on what we've seen so far. College, it's a clean slate once you hit the NFL. And I don't care how successful you were in college days. I think now we are seeing what he's made of based on these last 2 games. Not impressed. But again, there is a learning curve. I do agree that things are only going to get better. But at the same time, I don't think this is the Messiah. And I think that a lot of people are hoping that he will be. Jet fans, I'm with you on this. I'm hoping he will be. But again, based on what we've seen so far, not there.
I don't know if he can walk on water, but I think he can win football games. And I mean, we talked about the list of rookie quarterbacks and first-round picks that have struggled in their first seasons. I mean, guys like Troy Aikman, who went on to win 3 Super Bowls, I think won 1 game in his first season.
A Cowboy stat?
Listen,
Time out.
Cowboy stat from Joe?
Joe, did you know that Cowboys won in 15 and 89, and Steve Walsh is the guy who started the 1 game that they won.
So there you go.
Aikman
He
did not
He won 0 games.
He had a Blutarski rating in his, as far as
Like
victories.
Joe's college
But-
GPA.
Yeah, I think that
Magna cum laude.
what his I think
Suma,
really
by
developed.
the way. Sorry, just saying.
Yeah.
Oh, you were?
Yeah,
But did you go to Syracuse also?
no,
Where'd you go?
I don't remember. But listen,
It's got to be better
Who
than
was your
Syracuse.
4-0 you said?
I did all right. But look, you know what? I didn't walk on water, Joe. So I feel like
Can
it's
you
all.
win football games?
I
Wait,
mean, I think I
I
couldn't
didn't realize
do.
we were in a company of a 4-0 at Stanford.
I didn't say I got a 4.0.
I thought,
But-
didn't you?
No.
He said
maybe.
summa cum laude,
Maybe.
which is,
I-
I think, between 3.8 and 4.
Is that what it? I would have no idea.
Yeah, I felt just short of it.
So
You
did
know,
I. By an entire point to 3.0.
I had a 3-3.
That's much better than me.
You did?
Yeah,
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Syracuse.
Syracuse as well.
I laid the groundwork for young Joe.
Were you a
It's
Sigma
true.
Chi like Joe?
I didn't belong to a frat.
No.
Nobody belonged to frats.
He's like only tools were belonging to the friends.
That's right.
It's true.
I don't
Well, it
think
changed
it's fair.
over the years by the time Joe got there. But listen, what I was going to say is that I think one of the problems with the NFL now is that people want to make long-term judgments based on short-term results. And after 2 games,
That's new, though? That's not new.
it didn't. I'm telling you.
All right.
Back in the Stone Age when I started covering this, it was not like this. In the
Before it
90s
was broadcast on TV?
Yeah. when I started covering the Cowboys in 1981, we didn't make judgments about rookies after 2 games.
Fair,
A lot of
you're
times because the rookies weren't even getting on the field
Right.
after
It's
2
true.
games.
It's very fair.
I mean, that part of it has changed.
So when did it change?
I would say that when the rookies started getting this outrageous money before the rookie salary cap came in, and if you remember, Sam Bradford in 2010, that was the last draft class before the rookie salary cap, he got $50 million guaranteed in his rookie contract. And he had to play right away because the owners are going, wait a minute, I'm just guaranteed this guy $50 million and you tell me you need a year to develop him? So these high-priced rookies are all playing now for a variety of reasons. One, the team needs to get them on the field just to help them try to win. But also, even though Zach Wilson's contract is guaranteed is $34 million, it's 100% guaranteed. The Johnsons aren't going to sit there and say, "Well, wait, we're going to bring in a Joe Flacco again to start some games when we just invested all this money in this kid." So they're getting on the field earlier, and then the expectations are just so much higher. And I think the media, to a large degree, is at fault for this because there's a lot of pressure to make these definitive judgments almost every week. When I was at the Daily News, I had a sports editor there who every Monday, if the Giants or Jets had lost, he would shout onto the phone, "Season on the brink!" And I go, they've only played 3 games. What do you mean season's on the
But
brink?
I feel like that's kind of part of our job. I mean, I feel like that is the Monday morning quarterbacking that you're describing. I mean, that's a big part of our job. And then it's stepping back and then analyzing and doing what we're doing now. So I feel like it is those headlines that, you did for so many years and so well, Gary. And that was what, I would read that every single day and be like, yeah. And then sort of find a way to make it entertaining. But at the same time, being analytical about it. Yeah. You know what? It is just 2 weeks in.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, okay, if you want to write that Zach Wilson is a bust after 2 weeks, what happens after 8 weeks if he's tearing it up? I mean, there are no erasers on this stuff once it gets printed. So you have to, you have to pace yourself before you can make definitive declarations that a guy or a team stinks.
So at what point? So let's say the Jets and Giants go 0-3 or 0-4. Is it time to panic then? Is it time to panic after 0? At what point?
Well, speaking from my point of view, I never panic.
Calm, cool, and collected.
That's right. Sometimes
be concerned. Be
no.
little...
I think I think Jet fans realize this is a rocky road this year. They don't want to start. They didn't want to start all over again, but they got a rookie coach, a rookie offensive coordinator, and a rookie quarterback. That's not in most cases, it's not a recipe for a playoff season. I think the key for the Jets is we want to see what kind of coach Sal is when he's got to manage a game. That hasn't happened yet, where he's got to make really key decisions. And you definitely want to think by December 15th, the Jet fans are going, yeah, we got our quarterback. Mm-hmm. This guy's just going to get better from this point forward. That's a successful season for the Jets. I don't agree with what Greg Buttle said on our first show that wins and losses don't count. I think that
was ridiculous.
I think it always counts. Because I think you build on it. If you win 2 games, there's not much to build on. You win 6 games, even though it's a 6-11 season, at least you can build on it because you won more than the year before.
Yeah, but sometimes that's fool's gold because we saw the Jets win 8 games in the second half of their season just a couple of years ago, and they thought they were on the right track.
Right.
But they really, they weren't. Mediocrity
on
is...
closer inspection.
Yes, upon further review.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to look at the roster and analyze it that way. You're talking about Gase's first year when they won a bunch in the second half?
Yeah.
I missed
they started.
I
think they
no,
started.
I'm just kidding.
I think the X factor to that, before getting too encouraged about how the Jets were going to be, is like, well, they still have Adam Gase as the coach,
right?
Who was, I knew him as an assistant in Denver, and Peyton swears by him. Peyton is the reason he got the job when he called Woody. I am really shocked, I have to admit, how bad he was as a head coach, even though he wasn't great in Miami. Until you see somebody up close, you don't realize. It's like until you see Javi Baez play every day, you don't realize what kind of. I think the guy's a tremendous player. He strikes out too much, but I didn't realize what a great player he was in every facet of the game until I've been watching him every day. Until I saw Adam Gase every day, I didn't realize just what a terrible head coach he was.
Wait, all right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to your point, though, as far as the way the team has rallied around their new quarterback, they did not do that with Adam Gase. Like, there was such problems inside that locker room based on Adam Gase. And that, to me, is a huge factor in why I think he was a horrific coach. Whereas what you're talking about with Zach, this is a man who is just a young man, but has earned the respect of the locker room. And I feel like that gives a lot of hope there.
When you look at Adam Gase, not to defend him because I agree that he was a terrible head coach, but we'll bring it back to school for a second. I had a math teacher that was so smart and could just see the answers to problems.
He's a terrible coach.
Right, because he couldn't explain.
Be able to communicate.
Exactly. When I think about Peyton Manning's praise, because that was the thing that was the most perplexing to me in all of this, was how is Peyton Manning singing the praises? Well, I think of Peyton Manning as a savant, and he could probably look at the same thing and just pick it up and gaze, and he could maybe speak in a different language. But when you're the head coach of a football team, you need to be able to bring that locker room together, and you need to rally and motivate men. I have heard multiple Jets players say, with Robert Saleh at the helm this year, the other administration under Gase was so X's and O's and cerebral. Saleh is about knowing your job, doing what you need to do every day, and coming to work and putting that work in. It's a lot more digestible for so many of these players, and it's a lot easier for them to buy in because of that.
And I would say if you're so smart, then you're able to simplify. And I feel like the sign of real intelligence is being able to take something that may be complicated and making it something that you can communicate in a way that's easy to understand and entertaining for whoever your audience is. So I feel like your math teacher really got it wrong, Joe.
Explains a
Tell
lot,
him that.
doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's why I'm in broadcasting.
Right. So let's go to the other side of the ball. Teddy Bridgewater. He's been better, at least, than I expected. He's thrown more balls over 20 yards than anybody in the NFL this year. Almost 600 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 0, which is Joe's number, GPA, interceptions. Do we think Denver found their quarterback, Joe?
Not long term, but I think that they have a roster that has been so well built out around him that he's a perfect guy to put in this situation. And I think that when you look at Denver, they're the perfect example of why you need to be a little bit more patient. And yes, wins and losses matter, but you need to look big picture too. They were 5-11 last year. This is Vic Fangio's 3rd year with the team, and you can see the way it's come together. One of the biggest signings for them in the offseason was getting Kyle Fuller from Chicago, who Fangio brought in when he was there. What they have done with the depth on that defense, what they have done with the offensive line and the skill position players around him, the quarterback just needed to not lose the game for them. And Drew Lock, I think, was forcing too many passes, turning the ball over too much. Teddy Bridgewater is not going to be that guy. As you said, 0 interceptions this year, but he's done that throughout his career, right? He's managed to not turn the ball over. And when you pair him with a good running game and really talented wide receivers, even with Jerry Jeudy down, I think Courtland Sutton is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league. Noah Fant is a stud at tight end. They have all the pieces around him, so he fits perfectly.
Yeah, I think what we've seen from Teddy Bridgewater is the 2 best games of his career. I mean, he was just outstanding against the Giants in the opening game. Whether he can sustain that or not, who knows? It shows 2 things about what happened over the summer there, that they clearly saw that Bridgewater was capable of playing these types of games, and that Drew Lock must have been, awful. Because a year ago at this time, they thought he was the future, and then they gave up, I think it was a 6th-round pick to Carolina to get Bridgewater, and most people thought that Lock was still going to be the quarterback. So, he's a veteran. He's a smart guy. He's been in a bunch of different systems. He does have good skilled position players around him. They miss Jeudy right now. He got hurt against the Giants. That obviously hurts some. I mean, Denver has had the benefit of playing against 2 teams right now that are combined 0-4, in the Giants and the Jaguars. Now they're playing another 0-2 team in the Jets. So it's a favorable early schedule for them. Let's see what happens when they get into the AFC West, which, with Kansas City and the Raiders are undefeated now, and I think the Chargers are going to be really, really good. When they get into division games, we'll know more about it. But this game Sunday, even though they have some injuries, I don't think will be a real test for them. And that the fans who never knew what to expect out there going into the season are going to be really jacked up with the team coming home,
Sure.
2-0 after 2 road games.
So what I think is helping Teddy is Denver is 5th in the NFL in rushing, averaging 130 yards. Takes a lot of pressure off of Teddy, but the Jets' defense has been surprisingly decent. What do we think about that matchup this Sunday, Joe?
I think that the Jets' D has kept them in games. I think that they're catching Denver at a good time here. They have one offensive lineman that's questionable, missed the last game, and again, no Jeudy. But the Jets' defense isn't the problem. I think they've been competitive despite the 4 turnovers, by Zach Wilson. They were in that game. I think it was 13-3 at half. So one big play, and all of a sudden, even Carolina, they were in that game 19-14. You get a 5-point game there down the stretch. They don't give up, and that's one of the things that I said in our first podcast here is to watch this team to say if they're moving in the right direction.
Sure.
Is are they playing to the final gun? And this defense does not put their head down. They go out there and they fly to the ball, and they are playing hard and fast. Yes, they're going to make some mistakes, but I like what I see from them so far.
Yeah, I think that C.J. Mosley is reminding us that he's a pretty good player.
So good.
Awesome.
The game he played against Buffalo in the opener of 19 before he got hurt,
Yes.
he was just all over the place. The offense and Zach Wilson specifically kept putting the defense in bad position against New England, creating short fields for the Patriots. And New England didn't capitalize on all those things, and part of the reason is because the Jet defense, played well with their backs to the end zone. And it's kind of the opposite of what I thought. I thought the defense was going to be horrendous this year, especially after Carl Lawson got hurt.
I think that also helps with just watching these games. I think because the expectations were so low, I watch the defense and I think to myself, this is legit, right? And I wonder if the expectations were higher, if I would still feel that way. But I think the main thing here is that they are fighters. And we're seeing that. And we're seeing that especially towards the end of the games. And that is a huge test. And I think that is something that I hope we can continue to see throughout the season.
Nice. All right, prediction time. Broncos are a surprising 2-0. The Jets are possibly a surprising 0-2, or possibly not. And they're playing in Denver. There's going to be fans there for the first time since December 29th, 2019. The altitude, the fans, can the Jets overcome and get their first win of the season, Gary?
What's the altitude like at BYU? Seriously.
It's high.
Is it? So, all right. If I'll take your word for it, you were a
Summa cum
earth science
laude.
major or something?
Astronomy, math, whatever.
Yeah. So,
Home ec.
I was going to say, if Zach is used to playing at that altitude, it's a big thing. I've been to Denver several times, and the altitude adjustment is real.
By the way, it's a good point. It was something that I wasn't thinking along those lines. I think of Zach as a New Yorker without thinking about just based on the fact that this is our team here. But yeah, he is accustomed to that, and that will definitely be a factor. So interesting.
That's why Todd is just paying me so much money for my insight. Because not only the football stuff, but
But
I tell you
you're
about
taking
the
a step beyond.
atmospheric conditions.
I feel like Joe answered the question. You just posed it. I could be wrong, but that's what I recall. Could we rewind the tape? Joe, we keeping receipts. So who's going to win? Quickly.
I think Denver will win. But I think the Jets will have an opportunity to keep this close.
Oh, good, Joe.
I agree. I think they're 10.5-point favorites right now, the Broncos at home. I'm not worried about Zach Wilson. I am worried about the defense because while they have played well, they don't have depth. And if you need rotations, which you're going to need out in Denver, that's going to be tough. They're going to get tired at the end of the game. I see them sucking some wind. But I think they're catching the Broncos at the right time. No Bradley Chubb for this one. We mentioned Jerry Jeudy. Their linebacker Jules out. They're missing 2 cornerbacks, including Ronald Darby, who has been awesome for them this season. I think that makes this game a little closer in the final line, but I think the Broncos still win this by a touchdown.
Andy?
Broncos by 9. Next question.
I'm going to give a prediction. Then the next question, I got the Jets winning. We'll be the only person. We'll by a field goal at the gun. All right. Falcons, Giants. Speaking of winning, neither of those teams have done that yet this year. They're combined 0-4. Something's got to give. But I feel like the Giants outplayed Washington. I feel like definitely should have won that game. And I think that they're trending the right way. The penalty then is inexcusable. And they're playing at home. So I feel good about this game, this matchup. Is this a place that the Giants can get right and get their first win, Andy?
Yes, I feel good about this one. I feel like if there's a game that they can win, this is the game. I feel like they cannot go 0-3. And if Daniel Jones could just kind of keep that momentum going, granted, last Thursday feels like a very long time ago, but at the same time, love what we saw from Daniel Jones. And if he can just maintain whatever it is that we saw, I think the Giants are going to get their first win of the season.
They better, because if they don't win this one, I don't know where they get a win on their schedule. It's tough coming down the stretch. And you've got the extra motivation of you're retiring Eli Manning's jersey. You're playing what should be the worst defense you've played by far to this point this season. And you're coming into this game off extra rest. So if they don't beat the Falcons at home, I don't know where they're getting a win this season.
Well, I mean, they'll get a win at some
Yeah,
point.
they
if
will,
they
but
lose.
you tell me on their upcoming
I know.
schedule they're going to start 0-8, I think.
And you say they have a tough schedule coming down the stretch. They have a tough stretch coming
up.
in the
That's
schedule.
what I meant. I misspoke.
I mean, listen to it. After the Falcons, they go at New Orleans, which will be the Saints' first game in New Orleans because of the hurricane. At Dallas, then the Rams at home, the Panthers at home, at Kansas City, the Raiders at home, and then at the Bucks before they get into more division games. So this before the season spirals out of control, which it definitely has the potential to do if they lose this
I
game.
think Gary's panicking right now.
After this week.
I'm just being realistic.
Right.
That 0-5 start from last year might look good if they don't win this game because they can go 0-7 with
Sure.
the schedule coming up. So, Joe, you're right. If you don't win this game, you go, where are they going to win a game? A home game. The fans will be excited because of the Eli thing at halftime. It's a bad team. Their defense has been bad. The quarterback's been throwing pick sixes. So this is where the Giants got to turn things around. But I do want to say that had the Giants cashed in on that Bradbury interception last week with more than a field goal, or had Dexter Lawrence not jumped off sides by a millisecond, our whole conversation would be, the Giants got a chance to be 2-1. They're already tied for the division lead. The whole perspective is
Big
different.
road win in the division.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that would have changed.
Which is why Buttle's wrong yet again. Wins and losses matter.
Especially
that was
for the
so
Giants.
wild. But by the way, that comment is still so ridiculous.
Sticks in my
Well, the man
craw.
played on terrible teams. So wins and losses,
He has to sleep at night.
He played well. So the Giants have been 0-2 every year since 2017. Haven't made the playoffs since 2016. If you're looking for a reason to believe, which I am, I think their offensive line played a heck of a lot better against a great defensive line in D.C. than expected. And, if Daniel Jones is going to turn around, if Saquon is going to stay healthy, you need a good offensive line, and no one thought they had one.
They don't. I don't think they do.
No.
Go on, John. I feel like I want to believe that the O line is strong, but I don't believe that to be the case.
They look good. They look good against Washington, and that's a true test. They got 4 number 1 draft picks. They got the defensive rookie of the year. They got after Brady in the playoffs. I mean, Washington's defensive line is legitimate, and they held up.
They actually looked better after Nick Gates got
Yes, which is shocking.
Yeah, that was really surprising because I thought he was their
One of their better, most
consistent offensive
yes.
lineman and a captain.
Yes.
But, the offensive line did a good job of giving Daniel Jones time. And like you said, 4 number 1 picks on that defensive line. But, boy, again, Gettleman's main stated concern when he took this job was the offensive line had to be fixed. We got to get hog mollies in here. And it's just a mix and match offensive line that they just haven't. Andrew Thomas is still a major question, and Will Hernandez got benched last year, and now he switched positions. And Shane Lemieux, who was a late round
Mario's
pick,
younger brother.
right? He's now likely. I think they said he's out
on
for the
IR.
year. Yeah, knee surgery. It's a mess again, and these late pickups that he got, the center from Cincinnati and the guard from Baltimore are starters now, and they've only been with the team for a couple of weeks. I mean, that's not really how you want to build an offensive line.
Yeah, well, let me give some credit to the Princeton Clapper here, Jason Garrett. I did not like him with Dallas, and I still don't think he's a great head coach. I don't know if he's a good offensive coordinator, to be honest with you, but what he did in this game,
think so.
clearly not his wide receiver, but wide receivers, they're a whole nother breed.
Divas.
Yeah, well, you said it, not me. Anyway, he actually had a good game plan with the run-pass option, getting Daniel Jones to, get outside the pocket. I can still picture one play where Chase Young is in the backfield and has Saquon, what he believes, tackled for a loss, and Daniel Jones sneaks out. I think it might have been the same play with the hold where he ran in for a touchdown. But that slowed down the defensive line a little bit. And you can't put all of these things on the quarterbacks or the offensive line. If you can pin your ears back and just go, average defensive lines are going to look a lot better. But he was still sacked 3 times, Daniel Jones, in the first, I think it was the first quarter, definitely the first half. And then they managed, as you said, to get it together once Gates went down there. But let's get these guys some quick throws, right? If you don't have the offensive line, let's do some play action. Let's do some of this run-pass option, especially with these 2 quarterbacks in Jones and Wilson, who are both athletic. And then, again, the thing that's concerning to me is the Giants' defense, because despite looking good on offense, they gave up 31 points to a backup quarterback in Taylor Heineke. Now, I know people are high on him, but even in that game against the Denver Broncos, that should have been a lot worse. KJ Hamler, I believe, drops a wide-open touchdown pass in that one, and they fumble going in on like the 10-yard line, so that score could look a lot more lopsided. It's the same players on defense. I want to know what's happened to them this season so far.
The positive is that the Falcons have allowed 80 points in the first 2 games, so if there's any positive there, this might be the game where the Giants can show what they're made of.
But as Joe and I were talking about when we were solving the problems of the world in the hallway earlier,
That's
Remember
nice,
that,
guys.
Dayton?
yeah, 2 pick sixes, you can't hold that against the defense that Matt and Ryan threw last week. So, like the defense, the Atlanta defense is not the strength of the team. I'm not sure what the strength of the team is, but the two pick sixes made it look a lot worse. One thing about Daniel Jones, I think the difference between him and Zach Wilson as athletes, the Giants do, when they call it, they do a good job on these design runs for Jones to run around the left or the right side, and he always seems to gain at least 10 yards. I want to see more of that. Wilson is not a design run type of quarterback, but he's a good scrambler, and he can buy time. And if he has to take off, he can do that. But his strength really is, like they call these off-platform throws, where he's, running to his right and throwing to his left and making something out of nothing. And that's an Aaron Rodgers type trait. I'm not comparing them by any means, but that is a good trait to have. They just need to start. He needs to start completing passes when he does that.
So I tried to give a silver lining earlier.
You're
I
a
got
glass
the
half full
Heisman.
guy.
I am. I got the Heisman from Andy. She emptied the entire glass.
No, listen.
But with that being said, I'm going to try again. Me and my empty glass. Atlanta's given up 80 points in 2 games. They lead the league. That's pretty good. They lead the league in something. Are they a good matchup for the Giants?
Yes, a half glass full, 100%.
Thank
the
you,
fact that the Falcons are lacking could only help the Giants. So yeah, half glass full, half full, 100% full, my friend.
Love it. Joe, do you see them breaking out?
Offensively, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I like what I've seen from the Giants' offense overall so far. And if Jalen Hurts can look like, they were going to give him the Super Bowl after Week 1, winning down in Atlanta. I think we need to pump our brakes on that. Atlanta's offense still scares me, and I think this game is going to be high scoring. But the Giants will put up points.
40 points? They've given up 40 points a game, Gary. Can the Giants get 40 points this weekend?
No, if you take away those 2 pick sixes, it's 33 points a game. But I think that if we can just see that what they did against Washington is going to be the identity of this offense, then I think that, they'll score some points on Atlanta. But until I see it, I won't believe it, because I think that was the second most points they've scored with Jason Garrett as a coordinator. It was 31 last year in the first game in Dallas. But this is, I hate to, after 3 games, to say, especially because of what I said before about making long-term judgments on short-term results, but if the Giants start 0-3, and then you, like we said, look at the schedule coming up, this can get really ugly, where we're talking about who's getting fired, any firings in mid-season with the general manager. I think the coach will survive this no matter what, because I believe the owners love Joe Judge. But I think the fans will turn on him if he started 0-5 last year. If they do that again or worse this year, Giant fans are not going to be patient. Jet fans need to be patient because they're rebuilding. But I think the Giant fans look at their team as being a little bit further ahead in the process, especially with all the money they spent in the offseason.
You mentioned fans growing impatient. I think the players are going to start to get impatient too, because they have been in Judge's corner. We saw it all throughout training camp, and that's why I thought they needed to get out to a fast start. Last year, when Golden Tate was complaining against the Bucs about not getting the ball, he got suspended the next game. Kenny Golladay is out there, and I don't know exactly what was said to Jason Garrett, but it seemed like he wanted the ball a little bit more. They're not going to suspend their new free agent acquisition in this one.
I mean, he made it very clear that he was not happy, and he made sure that everyone knew it. There's got to be a divide there between how much you expose publicly and how much you keep it inside the locker room. So yeah, that was pretty
It was
wild.
on national TV. That was definitely outside the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really, really bad look.
Right. So how long before that crack continues to spread throughout the whole team all of a sudden,
That's
where
right.
people start getting frustrated?
You can only, when you're kind of a disciplined guy like Joe Judge is, you can only keep the players' attention for so long without having the results to back
Exactly.
up. And, Belichick was in danger in his second year when he started 0-2 of losing that team. And that's the game that Bledsoe got hurt and Brady came
Mo
in.
Lewis.
And we know what happened
Yep.
after that.
Thanks, Mo Lewis.
Right. So, Belichick, I can tell you for a fact that Belichick felt if they didn't get things turned around in 0-1 that he was going to get fired after the season. I know that's what he was feeling. And
So he sat a $100 million quarterback when he was healthy to play the kid.
because he felt at that point that he was his quarter. He never liked Bledsoe, and they were winning somewhat. I mean, it was 5-4 when he had to make his ultimate decision, and he went with Brady, and it turned out okay. We're not talking about any major personnel decisions
Did
here.
it turn out okay, Joe, Andy?
Not for the rest of the league.
Right.
So we're not talking about any major personnel decisions that Judge has to make here. We're just saying he needs to win. It's just the way it is.
Okay. Before we get to prediction, I just want to handle one more thing. Let's take a look at halftime. Eli Manning goes into the Ring of Honor. Will he ever wear a gold jacket, Gary Myers?
Wow. That's a great question. I do want to
Thank
say,
you.
yeah.
Thank you. Andy, this is how you treat a host. See that?
Yeah.
I say next question.
Right.
Because you said 30 minutes, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess.
Oh, I'm definitely over.
We're going to
10
go a
pounds
little
of
over on
taters
this.
in a 5-pound
See,
sack.
as a normal host, I would normally be like, all right, well, we got to keep it at 30 minutes. So
Right.
I'm trying to be respectful
Of the time.
of the time.
Of the commercial holders, which is your segment of the show. You hold up the commercials
That's
on
like
either
that.
end.
Next question.
Right.
It is a great question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Aw.
Yes.
Can we answer it
say-
now?
Go ahead.
I say great question. I don't mean to pump up your ego because it's
Why
not
not?
really a unique question.
No.
I think I
It's
asked
a-
the same thing.
It's a great question, so we don't know the answer to it. It's
We
not
don't.
like it's a great question. Oh, Todd thought of this great question.
You just
I'm
took it
glad we
away.
have that
You
straight.
just took it away, by the way. Todd was
Yes.
feeling good. You
I was
know?
really handsome.
Okay, so I do have one of the 48 votes. I can tell you that. And I do support Eli as a Hall of Famer. I'm not sure he's going to get in. My argument will be he played his best football
When it mattered
when it
most.
mattered the most in 2 Super Bowls, led game-winning drives
Wow.
in the last minute, one of them against an undefeated team. If that's not the definition of a Hall of Fame quarterback, what is? On the other hand, the ones who don't want Eli can say, but he was only a 500 quarterback in the regular season. And I'm saying, well, Joe Namath was under 500,
Yeah.
and there's somebody else who was under 500. Maybe it was
Someone else that's on
Sonny
the Blitz this
Jurgensen.
weekend. Sonny Jurgensen. Do not go there. Gary Myers.
But he played part of his career in Philadelphia.
I
so-
understand. It's just the very beginning. Before he changed my entire life. I root for Washington, and I like Sonny. Love him.
All right, well,
Have the
whatever.
bumper sticker.
Whatever.
He's not one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Gary just said whatever.
I mean, how
Sonny's not one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
how deep does your list go of the greatest quarterbacks of all time?
As deep as it has to go to get to Sonny.
So if he's number 37, that's okay with
Works
That's
for
where we
me.
end the
If
list.
that's how deep we have to go, yes.
me. Okay. You don't want to get me started on
No, Joe, do you think he is a Hall of Famer?
Yes, Eli
Sonny?
Manning.
Or Eli.
Yeah, no one. Yes, Sonny. Yes,
So,
let's talk about
I believe there's only one quarterback who has won 2 Super Bowls that is not in the Hall of Fame.
Jim Plunkett.
Jim Plunkett with
Right.
the Raiders. So that right there. I mean, one, you get 2 Super Bowls, it's really hard to keep you out of the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. The other thing is, forget about what he did in those drives, because I know people are going to say that first Super Bowl against the Pats was lucky because of that
The
David
helmet
Tyree catch, right? And that Syracuse guy who
Lucky,
clearly has been working on his hands. I don't know. I think that might have been the last catch that he made in the league. But
It
great
was.
guy.
Sonny Jurgensen, 69,
Oh
71,
no!
and 7.
I knew you when you were on your phone. I knew that's what you were
69,
doing.
71, and 7.
He played for the worst teams in the history of the NFL.
All right,
Still led the league.
Let's
in
get a
passing.
whole separate podcast on this, because I know we could fill out the whole
One of
half
the greatest
hour.
quarterbacks of
And
all
then
time.
right, stop.
69, 71, and 7.
Right.
How many championships did he win?
Well, let me ask you a question.
Jim Plunkett and Eli Manning won two.
Two.
And that's why. But no, listen, forget about that game. Forget about the Super Bowls. Forget about the Super Bowls. The game before against the 49ers in the NFC Championship.
The second one.
Yes, in the second time. Because that's when Eli, to me, I guess, changed my perception of him. He got absolutely pummeled
He got the
in
crap
that
kicked
game.
out of him.
I honestly, I thought he lost his head at one point in that game, and he kept getting up and kept making every single play. And I think I heard later on, did he have the flu in that one? Like before the game, there was question about
That was
whether
Michael
he was
Jordan.
even going to play.
In
I don't-
Utah.
I don't remember that.
I think,
I know it was a rainy day.
yeah,
before the game.
I hear a lot of stories and mix them together maybe, but I think there was talk about he might not have even played in that game. What he did, absolutely incredible in that game, kept getting up, and that was an all-time defense in San Francisco. So you get 2 Super Bowls. I don't care what else is around you. You got to go to the Hall of Fame as a quarterback.
And the championship game in Green Bay, the first one.
oh, in the frigid
When
cold.
You were there
When
for
Todd
the
made me
Sunday
stand
Blitz.
outside.
Sam Ryan
It was
didn't
Sam-
complain, but you did.
I was there too, guys, and I
You were there.
yeah,
Were you out in the
I
cold?
did. I was
Did
out
you
in the
complain?
cold. I couldn't move my mouth, so I couldn't complain. It was frozen. I will say, I mean, I mean, you're laughing.
That's a really funny
I-
line.
I-
That was the
just
best line, honestly, Andy. That's like a top 5 line that you've ever
thank
delivered
you.
right there.
Wait a second. That was like such a non-compliment.
Wait,
Like,
does
No,
that mean
was
when
a
your
great
mouth
line. I couldn't complain.
Does that mean when
My
your mouth
was
is moving,
frozen.
you're always complaining? Is that what you're trying to do?
no, I'm saying.
Even if she
It's like that old line. How do you know somebody's lying when his lips are moving?
No, I mean that game was wild, and I just remember thinking to myself, everything from Coughlin to seeing how tough the Giants were, and knowing in that moment, I did post game for that game outside, and was literally like my nose was frozen. I just remember thinking I'm gonna die, but thinking this is the best moment ever, and thinking this team is gonna win a championship, and that's what's happening right now. And I remember knowing that and going to Arizona for that game, and feeling in that moment and looking at Eli and doing the post game with Eli after that game, and knowing this man is special. And when he did it again, it, in my humble opinion, made him unequivocally a Hall of Famer. And granted, he may not have the kind of record during the regular season games, but ultimately the biggest players come up during the biggest games. It's cliche, but it's fact. And Gary Myers, I'm glad that you were going to give him your vote. I do not have a vote, but if I had one, Eli would have it.
One more thing, just before Gary, his Iron Man streak was incredible,
Yeah.
and that should have lasted his whole career if the Giants didn't muck
Yeah,
that up
that's right.
too. I mean, the fact that he was out. You want to talk about his wins and losses? He was there every single game, and we talk about look at how many quarterbacks are already injured this season, right? Who can't stay on the field. You can't just knock that.
Just to finish this up, he beat Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau Field in the playoffs. That's pretty good.
It's not bad. Let's end it on that in under
Not
50
as good as Sonny
minutes.
Jurgensen, probably.
In under 50 minutes, ladies and
Well
gentlemen.
done.
Yes,
Well done.
I parked the cruise ship. So thank you guys for watching.
We get
We
overtime
didn't
pay
give
for this,
we
right?
didn't give a
You do,
prediction
Gary.
for the
You
game.
do.
You didn't?
No, quick, we got to get
Well,
it
give
under
a
50
prediction,
minutes.
Joe.
I think the Giants win this one. I'm going to go 32-28.
Nice. Andy?
I was going to say Giants by 3.
I think the Giants actually win this one by 10. Whoa.
I got the Giants by 11. I just want to be better than Gary.
Price is right.
Thank you guys for listening to Picks on Pigskin. Enjoy the games, everybody. Not 30, but,
You know what?
we're getting there.